Totafi, Hawasa, Galatama, Minisotaa, Nano, Ishi, Yoya! My name is Andrew DeCourt. I love people, and I'm committed to human flourishing, especially for people typically forgotten, excluded, or hated. I've worked as a pastor, a professor, and a peace advocate in Ethiopia for many years, and I'm truly honored to be with you today and to address you with these brief words. When I began my journey in Ethiopia in 2004, over 20 years ago, I never anticipated that one of Ethiopia's most famous or infamous public figures would ask me to edit their memoir and to be on this stage with them. Of course, I'm referring to Jawar Muhammad. At the time, I was 21 years old, and somewhere in Addis Ababa, or Gundar, or Lalibela, and Jawar was 18 and somewhere in Oromiya, Singapore, or Sri Lanka. Life is full of surprises. 20 years later, I'm grateful for Jawar's trust and invitation to edit his memoir titled in English, No Regrets, Reflections on My Journey and the Cairo Struggle. As a writer, I know how vulnerable it is to share my work with readers. And also as a writer, I know how even more vulnerable it is to share my work with friends, to be edited. So Jawar, I don't take this lightly, and I want to say thank you to you. Jawar and I first connected 14 years ago in 2011. This was before he was well known and before he had 2.6 million Facebook followers. At the time, I was a PhD student at the University of Chicago, and I had read some of Jawar's online writings. And we began a brief correspondence, and Jawar was kind to share some of my writings on Facebook. And then 7 years later, in 2018, I was working in Ethiopia on a project called the Neighbor Love Movement. And our message was simple but powerful. The other is not our enemy. The other is our neighbor. Every other person is someone we are morally connected to and have equally precious value in common with. I was inspired to start my work in Dredwa. If you remember, at the time there was intense communal violence in Jijiga, and there were lots of people who were fleeing from Jijiga to Dredwa. And also at that time I was invited to give a lecture at the City Hall in Dredwa to an audience full of high school students like this. And at the time I gave a lecture inviting these young people to love their enemies. I made a case why the most important message for the moment is to love the enemy. And I'll never forget, after I gave that talk, there was a young woman who came up to me with her beautiful hijab, and I could see that she was full of passionate energy. And I couldn't tell if she was angry with me or if she was excited. But she came up to me and she said words that I'll never forget. She said, Dr. Andrew, no one has ever told me to love my enemies before. But starting today, I will love my enemies and I will teach others to love their enemies. That was a crucial turning point in my life. I began asking questions like, how many other young people are there in Ethiopia and other places who are sick of conflict and who are waiting for someone to invite them into a path of loving their enemies rather than trying to eliminate their enemies. And that was the beginning of my work, trying to travel Ethiopia and inviting young people like Ferdosa and others to embody the practice of love across boundaries of difference and conflict for the sake of human flourishing. It was around this time that Jawar and I became friends. I reached out to Jawar and I asked if we could do an extensive interview about his childhood, about the role of faith in his life, about his moral figure in Ethiopia who was very angry with me, and he said, Andrew, how could you spend time with Jawar and have a fair-minded interview with him? And then since then, countless media platforms and individuals have weaponized my engagement. I remember there was a meme that was going around saying that Jawar was... I've noticed, Jawar, that when people want to try to attack me, they often... Hamile, Surah Al-Kasa, Guya Kuguya Sede Kabesha, Guya Kuguya Alagaris, Genius First Intijawar, Takawa Mokan, Hinamina Mamo, Kara, Noboro, Jura, Guya, Kidekwa, Naomi, Hamile Ujana, Dora Walaman, Dubartoota, Siko, Mando, Hamile, Bakate Sanitariya, Ulfanga, Karatoma. Isaaniif kenna ajee bashannantuun garuu amiin ajee fayyine tiima gabaasan naaf agarta kafaltiin gabasin kafalamaa kafaltiin achii kafalamee hirga'u warri suuraa kaastan suuraa kaasuudhaan qophaa'aa jidduudhaan ammoo kitaaba jalqabaa doolaara 2,000 dubartoonni sikkoo mandoo fudhatanii jiru osoo gatii isaa hin himanneedha. Ulfaadha kota. Hamile, Surah Al-Kasa, Guya Kuguya Sede Kaguya, Alagaris, Genius First Intijawar, Takawa Mokan, Hinamina Mamo, Kara, Noboro, Jura, Guya, Kidekwa, Naomi, Hamile Ujana, Dora Walaman, Dubartoota, Siko, Mando, Hamile, Bakate Sanitariya, Ulfanga, Karatoma. Horin gabasin kafalama fayyine lammaffaa kitaaba hin gaabbu doolaara 2,000 doolaara dubartoonni sikkoo mandoo fudhataniiru lammaffaa. Alright, yoo inni sun hin jirre anatu gatii ittiin kaasanii madhaka garuu nama hedduu arguun jira maal hanga duuba siniin akka argu isii tanan deeffadha namoota as keessa jiran amma hanqisumaatti nan arga tokkoon namaa ija kaameraa kiyyaadheera doolaara qeerroo jirtu dubartoonni fudhatanka qarreewwan jiran ilaal moo qarree fi wali fudhatan doolaara 2,000 dubartoota sikkoo mandoo anatu caala isaan irraa riikardii natu fudhata kan jettan. So it will be a record for dubartoota sikkoo mandoo qeerroo garee biraa jira. Alright, garee biraa jiru. Okay. Isaan kan caalu jiru. Isaan cidha kan deemu jiru. Kuma dhibba shanii kitaaba kana natu fudhata namni. Yes, achi ol ka'e kunoo oleessoo dhiirri akkas kunoo jabaadha. Akkana $1,500 kuma dhibba shaniin maqaa kan keenyaa himuu qabdu obboleessi. Madison, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Madison, Wisconsin, kuma dhibba shaniin Kamal, Hamile kanaafi Kamaliif Hamile. Maalati keessan isin dhukkuba Minnesota harka qabuyyuu dhabnee jirra barcarra. This is the first time when we come back together. All right. Kitaabni lammaffaadha. Madison, Wisconsin, doolaara 1,100 suuraa waliin kaasaa namni suuraa kaastan suuraa isaa mirga kan kennan mirgi kana kun olaala doolaara suuraa kaasaanii suuraa Worrii security dha suuraa kaasuudhaan na gargaara. Thank you. Suuraan isaa fudhatameera. Kotu suuraan ka'ee fudhatameera. Ati gama dhaabbatu kunoo kaameramaan inni qabna kaameramaan isa irraa addatta. Kotu Jawar irraa fudhannu. Gamanaan ka'e akkana kun olaala doolaara 1,500 obboleessi kenna Kamal Madison, Wisconsin, Minnesota jirtu South Dakota,
jiraatan hin beeku doolaara kuma tokko dhibba shanii fudhateera hamlee beela bakka jalqabaatiif dargaggeessi lafaa dhufaan seenaa akkanaa barreesse Jawar Muhammad qofaan kanaara la kitaaba Jawarii miti kabiyyaa bar kaadireedhaan humnaan gurguranii kun fedhii keessaniinoo akkana bitti rakkam namatti tola mee yeroo tokko hamlee dubartoota komandootiif kamaalii barra deemee akka chap akkas itti haasina hayyee jaalisiiti.
الصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله ومن والاه. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. نجي نسجد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. خطبة أقول هديم دعوني قد رزقي مسجد سبلني نسوداتنا كم دباني نيجي أني سلاكا في نيجا با أني مسجد يوم إسرائيل بوري جنة سنتجري بوري أما جواري وجينا جنة سين وربات جيت وربات جيت كلامه جواب محمد جنة سين أمين جتني أكاس ملك أولي أنت جنة سين ناقو يو أسيبا ملك نابا ورب جالت نواز بچيسو ورب جالت نواز جيسو جوار ديدا قبرما أمة أوروميا كاس وكاسي ميتي كتابنا همبر ركوتين كوكاتين وان نتفيسه جواري وجه وليغلو مرغا قبل غرومو اجيچا ساميچا في هدان هدافي بوكيس علمان اورمورت گيفما جيرون مرغا تقولي ديورا في قبل ربيتني اكس مكسمي جوار ولي دنفادا وليغلو مرغا وتو قبل غرو وانتوتي نيجاچاجو يرو ما تكيسات ساميچ اورمور رابط ساميچ مدي توبه رابط سبا سمو رابط اجيچا رابط كيجبي رابط زومي رابط كاريجاجو كربي كاميرا رابط اوبير رابط جوار بير رابط اوبير رابط نغدا مداسا كيمي كاموفاجو بلي سبا ديدا غبرما ولي بچاجو كراف نمتو مالك أبدا ليه دونا ربهم تكان سجلي أمة سجلي كم سجلي كتاب تبرات نيجي كتابه سجلي سجلي أمة كم سجلي هذا بركة كسر يمكن فيما في الجيل فيما في كبير كسر مبني فيما في كبير سجلي هذا جوار إذا أنا أمة تجعل سيف مريم في يوم من الفكرة وقالي ربي كسر أمتي